Hello my dear students and welcome to your favorite educational YouTube channel Educator Prerna, that's me. और आज हमारी जो T20 सीरीज है उसका नेक्स्ट सेशन है जिसमें we are going to be studying chapter number 7 from your textbook, from your main reader. इस chapter का नाम क्या है? Glimpses of India. And this chapter is divided into three parts. What are the three parts? The first part जो आज हम पढ़ने वाले हैं, a baker from Goa. Then second part is Coorg, a place called Coorg, and third is tea from Assam. All right. So आज के session में we will read and understand the first part, which is a baker from Goa. And before we start with the session, I want to remind all of you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel Educator Prerna. Alright, तो शुरू करते हैं इस चैप्टर को पढ़ना. A baker from Goa. It says this is a pen portrait of a traditional Goan village baker who still has an important place in the society. Our elders are often heard reminiscing nostalgically about those good old Portuguese days. The Portuguese have and their famous loaves of bread. Those eaters of loaves might have vanished, but the makers are still there. We still have amongst us the mixers, the molders, and those who bake the loaves. Those age-old, time-tested furnaces still exist. The fire in the furnaces have not extinguished yet. The thud and the jingle of the traditional baker's bamboo heralding his arrival in the morning can still be heard in some places. Maybe the father is not alive, but the son still carries on the family profession. These bakers are even today known as padder in Goa. तो ये स्टोरी जो है या ये जो चैप्टर है ये स्टार्ट होता है डिस्क्राइबिंग अबाउट द बेकर्स ऑफ गोवा. So it talks about that how with the arrival of Portuguese in Goa जो bread as a food item था वो introduce हुआ. Okay, so आपने अगर आपके SST में भी एक चैप्टर है जहां पर हम बात करते हैं that you know how different food items from across the globe went to different countries. तो इंडिया में जो ब्रेड थी, जो ब्रेड एज अ फूड आइटम था, वो कौन लेके आया? द Portuguese. And what was the first place where they landed and brought this food item? It was Goa. So the author is describing that the Portuguese of course left India, but वो जो bread का जो taste वो दे के गए to the Goan people, to the Goan population, that taste remained alive, and you know the people of the Goa, they learned how to make bread, and the love for the bread still exists. And then it says that you know a lot of times you know we hear our elders talking about कि you know हम लोग ब्रेड खाते थे एंड कैसे वो बेकर जो था वो आता था घर घर में आके ब्रेड देता था. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this or not, but not just Goa, you know there were many places in fact in our country, even places like the capital region Delhi itself, that you know there used to be a man who or there used to be a vendor who would come on a bicycle selling milk and bread. All right, so not like the way you get it in today's world that you go to a shop और आप वहां जाके ब्रेड परचेज कर लेते हो, या आजकल तो आपके पास ब्लिंकिट है, जेप्टो है, ऑर्डर करते हो एंड एवरीथिंग इज डिलीवर्ड एट होम. ओके, सो the first paragraph of this chapter describes that how the love for bread still remains in the Goan people. All right, to people of Goa. During our childhood in Goa, the baker used to be our friend, companion, and guide. He used to come at least twice a day. Once when he set out in the morning on his selling round, and then again when he returned after emptying his huge basket. The jingling thud of his bamboo woke us up from the sleep, and we ran out to meet and greet him. Why was it so? Was it for the love of the loaf? Not at all. The loaves were loaves were bought by some pastime, the maid servant of the house. What we longed for means to wait for something eagerly. What we longed for were those bread bangles which we chose carefully. Sometimes it was sweet bread of special make. So here the author is describing that how even his childhood, the baker played an important role. So he's saying that we all waited for the baker to come to our home, and it wasn't the bread that we wanted to eat, instead the bread bangles. So bread bangles, of course, the name comes from the round shape of the bread. So क्या होता था, bread के जो corners होते थे ना, उसको they would join it in a manner like make a circle out of it, and maybe dip it in some sugar syrup or something like that, and it generally tasted very sweet. Okay, so the children, of course, they loved it. All right, and then of course the author is also describing that how they came to know about the arrival of the baker. The jingling thud on his bamboo is what he says woke us from the sleep. And then he continues. He says the baker made his musical entry on the scene with the jing jang sound of his specially made bamboo stuff. So that bamboo that he would carry, it had some tinkling, some items that would probably make a tinkling sound. One hand supported the basket on his head, and the other banged the bamboo on the ground. So the baker, he carried the loaves of bread in a basket on his head, and in the other hand he would be holding a bamboo which he would, you know, kind of when he would put it on the road, so it made a thud sound. All right. Then it says he would greet the lady of the house with good morning and then place his basket on the vertical bamboo. We kids would be pushed aside with a mild rebuke, and the loaves would be delivered to the servant. But we would not give up. We would climb a bench on or the parapet and peep into the basket somehow. So, like in our childhood also we would do that. A vendor would come, and maybe if he had some items that really were of our interest, so we would try to peep in that basket. And then he goes on. He says, I can still recall the typical fragrance of those loaves for the elders and the bangles for the children. Then we did not even care to brush our teeth or wash our mouths properly. And why should we? Who would take the trouble of plucking the mango leaf for the toothbrush? And why was it necessary at all? The tiger never brushed his teeth. Hot tea could wash and clean up everything so nicely after all. So imagine the kind of eagerness the children had for eating those bread bangles. They say that we don't want to brush our teeth. No, we just want to, the moment we see those bread bangles, we want to grasp them and eat. Marriage gifts are meaningless without the sweet bread known as the bowl, just as party or a feast loses its charm without bread. So bread was such an important item. Not enough can be said on how I'm sorry. Not enough can be said to show how important a baker can be for a village. The lady of the house must prepare sandwiches on the occasion of her daughter's engagement. Cakes and bolognese are a must for Christmas as well as other festivals. So, how so many items made of bread were necessary on every occasion. Thus, the presence of the baker's furnace in the village is absolutely essential. The baker or bread seller of those days had a peculiar dress known as kabai. What was this? It was a single piece of long frock reaching down the knees. In our childhood, we saw bakers wearing a shirt and trousers and was shorter than full length ones and longer than half pants. Even today, anyone who wears half pant which reaches just below the knees, invites the comment that he is dressed as a paddock or like a padder. The baker usually collected his bills at the end of the month. Monthly accounts used to be recorded on on some walls in pencil. Baking was indeed a profitable profession in the old days. The baker and his family never starved. That is, they never died out of hunger. Why? He and his family and his servants always looked happy and prosperous. Their plump physique was an open testimony to this. So it was an open proof that how well a baker and his family or the servants were all his servants were doing, that they were all very plump, very healthy. That means they had more than required to eat. Okay, so obviously they were earning pretty well. Even today, any person with a jackfruit like physical appearance is easily compared as a baker. Okay, so that's about from this chapter. Nothing much to explain, but yes, what we basically need to know from this chapter is that how the memory of the baker and the bread and the bread bangles, all this remains with the author till date. Okay, so I'm sure all of you, you might have heard your elders, maybe your grandparents talking about, or even your parents talking about, this is how we used to celebrate that festival, or this is what we used to do in our childhood. You people don't do that. So that in on similar lines, the author has written this chapter, A Baker from Goa. Now I will see you in the next session of this chapter, जिसमें हम बेकर जो है उसके कैरेक्टर स्केच को समझेंगे. Till then, stay blessed and do like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel Educator Prerna. Thank you.